You scrubbed the sink at 11 p.m. Not because it was dirty. Not because anyone was coming over. You did it because something in you needed it, something you have never been able to explain out loud, and something no one around you has ever quite understood. They call it a quirk. They call you obsessive. Some of them laugh about it in that gentle, affectionate way that still somehow makes you feel like you are being studied from a distance. But here is what nobody has ever told you. What you feel when you clean, that deep, involuntary pull toward order, that exhale you get when the countertop is finally clear, is not a personality flaw. It is a neurological signature. And by the end of this video, you will understand exactly what your brain is doing, why it needs this, and what it quietly says about you that most people never get to develop in themselves. There is actually a deeper psychological reason for this that most researchers do not talk about, and I will get to it in a moment. First, let us be clear about what we are not talking about. We're not talking about OCD. We are not talking about anxiety disorder or compulsive contamination fears, though those are real and deserve their own conversation. We are talking about you, a woman who simply loves the act of cleaning, who feels something settle inside her the moment she starts, who will tell you, if pressed, that it is not really about the dirt. It never was. Researchers at the University of California followed 30 dual-income couples and measured their cortisol levels, cortisol being the hormone your body produces under stress, throughout the course of a full day at home. The women in the study who described their homes as cluttered or chaotic showed significantly elevated cortisol across the entire day. Not just in the moments of mess. All day. And here is the detail that rarely gets mentioned when people reference this research. The effect was substantially stronger in women than in men. Not slightly. Substantially. Which means your brain is literally processing a disordered environment as a low-grade threat in a way that most men around you are not experiencing. The clutter that rolls off him is quietly, physiologically wearing on you. And the cleaning that he calls unnecessary is, for your nervous system, closer to medicine. A published study in the journal Social Psychological and Personality Science, conducted by researcher Spike W. S. Lee and colleagues across multiple experiments involving more than 3,000 participants in the UK, the US, and Canada, found that both actual cleaning and even the visual simulation of cleaning measurably reduced anxiety and improved cardiovascular reactivity under stress. The brain did not just feel better. The body followed. Your heart rate, your blood pressure, the way your autonomic nervous system responded to pressure, all of it shifted in the direction of calm when cleaning was introduced. Which means what you have always felt, that particular loosening of tension when you are elbow deep in something that needed doing, is physiologically real. You are not imagining it. You are regulating. But here is where it gets genuinely strange and genuinely interesting. The cleaning did not need to be related to the source of stress to work. You could be stressed about a relationship, or a deadline, or something you cannot name at all, and the act of cleaning something entirely unrelated to that problem still brought your nervous system down. That is not logic. That is not rational problem solving. That is something much more ancient and much more intelligent. Your brain learned, somewhere along the line, that order in the environment equals safety in the body. And it has been running that equation ever since. The question worth asking is, where did it learn that? This is the part that most people completely miss when they try to understand women who love cleaning. The behavior is not really about cleanliness. Not its core. It is about control. Specifically, it is about what psychologists call perceived control, the felt sense that you have agency over your immediate environment, that the world around you is responding to your actions, that you are not helpless inside your own life. And perceived control, research consistently shows, is one of the most powerful predictors of psychological well-being across the lifespan. More powerful in some studies than income, social support, or even physical health. For many women, the earliest experiences of chaos, whether that was a home that was unpredictable, a childhood where emotional safety came and went, a parent whose moods could not be anticipated, or simply a culture that communicated that the world for women is frequently out of their hands, left behind a nervous system that became exquisitely sensitive to disorder. Not broken. Sensitive. There is a difference. The sensitivity is the adaptation. Your brain, faced with early experiences it could not control, found one domain where control was possible. The space around you. The surfaces, the corners, the arrangement of things. You could not control the argument downstairs. You could not control whether you were seen or unseen on any given day. But you could make this corner of the world respond to you. And your brain remembered that. Deeply. Cambridge University philosophers have written about what they call affordance theory in relation to how women process their domestic environments. The idea that many women experience physical spaces as implicitly communicating what needs to be done, as though objects and surfaces present themselves as invitations to act. A dish does not just sit in the sink. It signals. A surface with crumbs does not just exist. It asks. Whether this is learned or wired deeper than that is still a matter of real debate. But what is not debatable is that for many women who love cleaning, there is something that functions almost like a language between them and their space. And when that language is listened to, when you respond to what the space is asking, something in you feels answered in return. Does that sound familiar to you? That sensation of the room asking something and you meeting it? Because here is the neurological piece I promised. When you clean, your brain releases dopamine. Not in a vague, metaphorical sense. Literally. The act of completing a task, seeing a surface go from dirty to clean, moving through a room and leaving visible order behind you, activates your brain's reward circuitry in the same fundamental way that other goal completion behaviors do. The progress is visible. The result is immediate. In a world where most meaningful achievements take weeks or months or years to materialize, cleaning offers your brain something genuinely rare. A problem you can solve in 20 minutes, a result you can see with your eyes, and a measurable signal to your nervous system that you are effective, that you can change things, that what you do matters in ways you can actually perceive. Neuroscience research published in Neuroscience News notes that the satisfaction of bringing order to a home involves both dopamine and serotonin, the neurotransmitters associated with reward and stable mood. So the more you clean, the more your brain associates the act with feeling better. It is not a compulsion in the clinical sense. It is a well-worn neurological pathway that your brain has learned to trust. And the hormonal layer makes this even more specific to you. Research has found that estrogen and progesterone, which fluctuate significantly across the female hormonal cycle, directly regulate serotonin and GABA, the neurotransmitters involved in mood stability and anxiety tolerance. In the premenstrual phase, when progesterone drops sharply, GABA activity decreases, and the brain becomes more reactive to environmental disorder. Visual clutter feels more threatening. The urge to restore order intensifies. The cortisol response to mess is amplified. So the nights when you find yourself cleaning at midnight and you cannot quite explain why, there is a biochemical map for that. Your brain is not misfiring. It is responding to real shifts in its own chemistry by reaching for the one regulation tool that has reliably worked. There is also something worth naming about what cleaning does in terms of sensory experience. Cleaning anchors you in the body. The texture of a cloth. The motion of wiping. The smell of something clean replacing the smell of something stale. These are concrete, physical, present moment sensations. And that matters enormously for a kind of mind that is prone to abstraction, to running multiple futures and worries and responsibilities simultaneously, to carrying the emotional weight of a household that often goes unnoticed. Cleaning does something that meditation is often prescribed for but takes years to develop. It pulls the brain out of rumination and into the present through sensation. Not by discipline, by the work itself. The hidden cost of this, and it is real, is what happens to the relationship between you and other people in your home. When the house speaks to you in a language they cannot hear, you end up responding to a constant request that they do not experience. You see the fingerprints on the glass. They don't. You feel the disorder in the bathroom drawer. They don't. And so the labor falls where the sensitivity lives, which means you are working regularly to regulate an environment that others are simply inhabiting. And that asymmetry, that invisible labor that no one asked you to carry but that your nervous system genuinely cannot ignore, can hollow something out over time if it is never named. The exhaustion of it is not weakness. It is what happens when you have been the only one fluent in a language that others have no idea is being spoken. But here is the other side of that same sensitivity. The gift that lives inside the same wiring. Women who love cleaning tend to have an unusually high capacity for noticing not just physical disorder, but emotional disorder. The shift in someone's mood before they have said a word. The dynamic in a room that has changed slightly, but no one has acknowledged. The need in someone else that has not yet been articulated. The same nervous system that cannot unsee the crumbs on the counter is often the same system that catches the thing everyone else missed, that senses the change in atmosphere before it becomes an argument, that holds and tends to the emotional environment of a home with the same invisible care it brings to the physical one. That is not a coincidence. It is the same capacity, expressed in two directions. You were not handed a flaw. You are handed a form of attention so fine-grained that it registers things most people's minds slide right past. The cost of that attention is that it cannot always be switched off. The gift of it is that you notice the world in a way that most people never will. You have probably been made to feel at some point that this part of you is too much, too particular, too focused on things that don't matter. But the research does not bear that out. A 2019 study in Personality and Social Psychology Bulletin found that people who described their homes as clean reported fewer symptoms of depression. Indiana University researchers found that people with clean homes were measurably healthier, not because cleanliness is next to godliness, but because the act of caring for a physical environment is an act of caring for the self. It is a form of agency. It is a form of saying, "This place matters and so do I." The women who reach for a cloth when the world feels unmanageable are not avoiding the problem. They are doing something ancient and intelligent. They are restoring, in the only space they can immediately reach, the felt sense that order is possible, that things can be made right, that their hands have power. In a world that offers women so many messages about what they cannot control, the act of cleaning can be, when it is chosen rather than compelled, a quiet act of sovereignty. You are not cleaning because you have to. Not really. You are cleaning because somewhere inside you, you know that a space held with care becomes a body held with care. That when the surfaces are clear, something in your mind goes clear too. That the particular peace you feel at the end of it, hands still, room quiet, the faint smell of something clean, is not a small thing. It is you regulating a nervous system that is more finely tuned than most people will ever understand. It is you speaking a language that the best parts of you have always known, and that deserves to be understood, not fixed. If this video reached something in you that you have never quite been able to explain, something you have felt for years but never heard anyone put into words, then subscribe. Because this channel exists for exactly that, to show you the psychology underneath the things you have always known about yourself but never had the science to confirm. The next video goes even deeper into the kind of mind that carries more than its share, the psychology of women who feel everything more intensely than the people around them realize. It will hit harder than this one. I will see you there.